Welcome to Ask Sean, where I explore all sorts of questions about being human and invite you, the listener, to become more present to yourself, your relationships, and your life. I'm Sean Slevin, a licensed professional counselor and a licensed marriage and family therapist. And if you have questions for me, you can send those to me anonymously at asksean.org. So this video is actually going to be a portion or maybe the entirety of an interview I did online with a college student. I confess I have not decided if I'm going to chop this up into segments and make it into multiple videos or just do the whole thing. So this is my kind of vague intro, just kind of letting you know what the following will be. Whatever title card I decide on is going to be your main clue to what this specific video is going to be about. But the kinds of things that we covered in the interview related to how we can be approaching, kind of my thoughts on how we can be approaching our emotional well-being, our mental health in more holistic ways, how we can be working to become more present, the importance of becoming more present to ourself and to our life, and in terms of attending to our sleep and what we're eating and when we're eating and those kinds of things. And also just the recurring theme that I'm so often talking about of how fundamental it is to learn to take responsibility in order to actually change. Like, we have to be willing to do hard things, and we have to own that, like, I have to choose that, right? Otherwise, I'm not going to get well. I'll just continue to shrink and contract and be miserable, which we humans seem to be really good at. So, at any rate, yeah, enjoy. Yeah, this is a great question. I think that one of the big blind spots in our culture right now about mental health, and honestly, I'm realizing that this is showing up in my field actually a lot more than I wish, and more than I thought. But we are tending to think that the reduction of pain or the elimination of pain should be the highest goal or the greatest good. And this is well intentioned, right? Because we don't want people to suffer, and so if someone is in emotional distress, like, we want to make that better, which it's not a terrible impulse, but the misguidedness of this is that growth is hard work. Like, to actually heal, to actually work through something, like, if avoiding pain and minimizing pain is, if we are consciously or unconsciously treating that as the greatest good and the greatest goal, if that's what's driving us and what informs all our decision making, we'll actually end up working against growth. We can see this in something like in the physical realm with something like physical therapy. If you've had an injury and you're going to physical therapy going through rehab and whatnot to try to regain use of, say, your leg or your arm or whatever, like, that process is going to have a degree of painfulness to it. Now, we're trusting, our physical therapist to have the wisdom to help us discern the difference between a kind of pain where it's like, oh, we're actually causing more damage, versus a pain that, like, no, I kind of need to kind of persevere through that, right? But if we're treating all pain as bad, well, then I'm never going to use, my leg or my arm or whatever it is. I'm never going to use that again, right? Like, I will just shrink back more and more and more, and the tissue will atrophy. I won't work out the scar tissue stuff. Like, all these kinds of things. I won't regain that aspect of my life, and so I'm just seeing this a lot in our culture, and I'm seeing it kind of infecting my field to a degree, and I think it's a big part of why we're struggling so much, honestly. We have more mental health awareness than we have ever had, maybe in all of human history, right? And yet, we're a fucking wreck. I mean, our country is like on fire, like, and we're setting ourselves on fire daily. And I'm not trying to even pick any political fights there. I'm speaking more to like what's going on emotionally, right? Like we're not able to like, to mobilize in healthy ways to actually like work through things, so yeah, it's like all with all of our medication, with all of our science, and with all of our mental health workers and whatnot, like we are a mess. And so I think part of this, I mean these are complicated things, right? But I think part of this is that deep down we've become such a culture of avoidance. And so what we ask for and what we seek is like, hey, just make me feel better. Hey, just make the pain go away. And that will not actually lead to life, right? Like that will always make us worse. That doesn't mean we ignore the pain. That doesn't mean we be callous to the pain. Like what we need in life is we need people who can be kind and who have capacity to grieve with us how hard something is while they simultaneously say, and let's take another step, and let's take another step, and let's move towards that difficult, painful thing. That they firmly kind of keep us on task in doing the hard work so that we actually will get well, right? So that we actually can live a fuller life. So yeah, so I think that's I guess an ethic, I would say, that just doesn't seem to be terribly common in terms of people having a felt sense of like, oh, if I actually want to get better, it's really going to be very costly. Like it's gonna require me maybe to do some of the hardest work I've ever done in my life, and yet, I'm worth it. We're all worth it, right? We're worth that persevering through that, and learning to walk again and run again. To borrow from the physical therapy analogy. So yeah, so that would some thoughts on that question. Right. Yeah. So, I'm not a dietitian, so I don't get super nitty gritty on those things. I will sometimes share things from my own personal experience, maybe in terms of like, like some supplements or something that I'm working with for myself. More so what I kind of explore with people, like how would I put it? So I'm listening for any aspect of their life that feels a bit out of whack, a bit out of sync, like are they having difficulty sleeping? Are they uh, are they, is their use of caffeine, seeming problematic, or alcohol, or any substance for that matter, right? And in all of these things, in whatever the details are, like what I'm wanting to help them move towards is actually being more present, right? So if my hypothesis earlier is at all accurate that we have become predominantly a culture of avoidance, then I want to be watching and listening for where does someone have a relationship with a substance, with a pattern, with whatever that is more about them checking out than about them actually living their life. And so then conversations around, their diet, around, food, and even when they're eating and what they're eating, and alcohol or not alcohol, or timing of all these kinds of things, is I want to get them thinking about, well, how is this actually working for you, right? So it's like I'm not going to be able to speak with specificity and certainty of like, well, you absolutely shouldn't do this, that, or the other. I mean, sometimes there are things where it's like, don't shoot up with heroin, like I don't need to like be a medical doctor to be like, I'm pretty sure that's not good for you, like though undoubtedly it's serving some kind of a purpose and need in your life, but like let's find some healthier things than that, um, but a lot of the sort of more mundane things, right? Like I'm not going to be able to be like, oh, I know you should or shouldn't eat pasta or da da da. But if I can help them become more awake to themselves and start to pay attention to their body, start to pay attention to like, oh, it's interesting. I always tend to, eat some of this kind of food, and then I tend to feel this way in the hours after. Okay, well, like that's a win, right? Like they're starting to wake up and be like, well, maybe I want to start to experiment a little bit. What happens if I don't do as much of that? What happens if I cut that out entirely, right? Like, I think, like, I love that we are in an age where we have access to so many experts about so many things, and absolutely we want to avail ourselves of those expertise and information. But we will get the most out of that, right? If we're getting in touch with our body, right? Like if we're actually like, oh, it seems like I'm having trouble with these kinds of foods, or this kind of timing, or this kind of quantity, or whatever combinations of things, right? Like we've got to start by just being awake to what am I observing happening, and then stepping into a sense of responsibility and agency of like, okay, I have choices to make here. I can start by just doing some initial experiments. If I'm getting stuck in terms of like my understanding, then that's a time to seek some more information. Start with Google, work our way towards maybe having an appointment with somebody, like a dietitian. If we're thinking food stuff, or testing for some allergies. But the goal there is to get more informed so that we can take more responsibility and make more informed decisions, right? So that's kind of sort of the angle in which I would approach those kinds of things. Again, because I don't have the expertise to get super specific with people, but I know that sleep matters. I know that how quantities of alcohol and timing of alcohol like can affect sleep, for example, and can affect other things. I'm aware that like there's all these relationships in terms of gut and food and our emotional well-being. My job is primarily to get people more aware so that they can start to make informed choices. That's a great question. I feel like there's some momentum building of people wanting more holistic approaches. Um, I think the tricky thing is that still can bump up against just sort of the human nature, and then the very strong cultural kind of I guess ethic, I would say, of just make the pain go away. Give me the quick fix, give me the easy answer. Um, I think one of the tricky things with how we have conceptualized psychiatric medications is that while on the one hand there's been this desire to try to destigmatize things and to remove the shame of having mental illness, of struggling in some kind of way emotionally, mentally, we have inadvertently robbed ourselves of personal responsibility, by casting things exclusively in terms of, well, you just have a brain chemistry imbalance, which incidentally is mostly a metaphor. It isn't quite the literal reality that it's often painted as, and a lot of times it's not remotely that. Um, and so I think that's been a real failing of my field and of psychiatry, is that like I'm grateful that we have psychiatric meds. Like there are times where like it's like that can be life saving, and be life changing. But I wish that we would approach these things really more in a holistic way. I mean, to your original question, right? That we would be having a conversation with a client around like, hey, it seems like the intensity, the level of struggling that you're having, that you would benefit from this additional support in this season while you're doing difficult work, of trying to grow and heal, right? I mean, it would be akin to like if you're, again, the physical therapy analogy, like maybe you need to use a crutch, maybe you need to use a cane. And in some cases, we may need to use a cane or a crutch our whole life, and there's no shame in that, right? But my goodness, we want to see what are we capable of, right? Like if we put in the effort, right? And so I think that would be a much more life-giving direction, right? And so then that gets into like, well, what other lifestyle changes, are a part of the mix here, right? I mean, that's again where I'm always listening for like, oh, your sleep is terrible. Why is that? Oh, well, because you're having a Red Bull at 5 p.m. every day. like let's start having a conversation about why you're doing that and what would happen if we didn't do that, right? Because if you're sleeping terrible, then yeah, your mood is going to be shit, like to put it in technical terms, like so, like let's see what we can do, like what needs to change to start to stabilize your sleep. Is there indications of an apnea, issue? In which case, well, okay, you need to make an appointment to confirm that, and maybe you need to get a CPAP or da da da, right? Whatever. Like, so yeah, it's like again, it's this thinking about what are all the things interacting, in terms of the holistic question, and helping people to like take responsibility, right? Responsibility in the sense of like they have choices to make. There's always going to be shit we can't control, right? Like we've got the bodies we've been given, but what are we going to do with the body we've been given, right? Like, yes, I've got my baggage. Yes, I've got my particular, makeup and my temperament, but it's my responsibility to make the most of this, right? To run as far and as fast as I can, and again, in the physical therapy analogy. And to do that, a psychiatric med is not going to be enough. Even if it is called for, right? It's like, well, what else is going to support me in this season in doing this difficult work?